Hey Saints, thank you for watching this video. This video is especially for black believers because I'm addressing the black community right now. There is one thing of the black community that really needs to stop. And I'm not going to make any excuses for it, and I'm not going to condone it. This stigma on mental health in the black community needs to go. If a child was mishandled by his parents, and now he's an adult, he will have some issues afflict him for how he was mishandled by his parents. If he tells you that he has issues and he asks for your consideration, give him some consideration. He's not using his past wounds to manipulate you and to exploit you. He's not a narcissist. He's just telling you, be a bit considerate of him. What times in the black community, we then tell them, cut it out, man. Yeah, he beat you with a stick a few times or with the belt, but hey, probably you deserve it. Or even if he was abusive, hey, you turned out well. You didn't die, right? That attitude we have in the black community? Look, I was raised with such an attitude also, okay? Stop crying or stop whining. It's not that bad or whatever. Listen, I'm an anthropologist and I'm a sociologist. And I have historical knowledge. And let me tell you one thing. Any population that refuses to face the defects of the previous generations is doomed to repeat those defects and is doomed to end up in ruin. Okay? This thing of beating your children or screaming at your children, where do black people get it from? From the transatlantic slave trade. And later also by the colonial oppressors who were doing that to adults. So we developed this abusive attitude, thinking that this abusive attitude is a type of authority. We adopted it and began to use it on one another, and we need to cut it out. The transatlantic slave trade is over. The colonization of Africa is officially done. Yes, there's indirect colonization through corporations, but the occupation of Africa is done, okay? And slavery is done. We need to cut out with those defective coping mechanisms that our ancestors adopted. Yes, our ancestors adopted defective coping mechanisms and it worked for them back then. But it were coping mechanisms, so it had side effects. And we, the later generations, we are suffering the side effects of it. Why do you think so many black men have to be hyper-masculine to prove themselves? Because during the slave trade, there were coons raping other black men and boys just to impress the slave master. Okay? And after slavery, you had coons that were undermining us to please white folks. So yes, because of that, we developed this intense masculinity to prove ourselves. Now that intense masculinity also causes us not to learn to resolve conflict in a peaceful way, because we have to prove ourselves to be men. Anytime something happens that hurts us, we think, hey, I'm a man, I'm not taking this. Listen, chill out. This is not only for the men, it's also for the black women. We need to learn from the errors of our ancestors and make sure we don't repeat them. Stop talking about white supremacy. Stop talking about the quote-unquote white men and their oppression. Yes, they exist and they're doing their crap. But here's the thing, white supremacy is destroying itself right now. Okay? And our ancestors fought back hard against white supremacy. The thing is, our ancestors fought back against white supremacy very hard, and they also had allies from other ethnicities, white allies, Asian allies also that helps them. Okay? Don't forget about those, but our ancestors fought back and endured a lot, I know it. Just realize this, they fought hard to get free from the chains and from the plantation, but they did not go through the healing process about what happened to them, and neither did the later generations after the 1860s. Black folks never had a collective mourning process of what happened to us. And because of that, we kept on passing on defective behaviors and attitudes to the next generation. We need to stop doing that. This keeping it real and keeping it hard attitude, cut it out. Those are coping mechanisms that will harm you. Look, if you're in a battlefield, in a war zone, I can understand it if you're a soldier, but you're not a soldier on a battlefield. You are a human being, a fragile and vulnerable creature in a human community with other fragile and vulnerable creatures. And we all have mortal bodies. We all need to get along and we all need one another in a community. So stop that defective attitude of not wanting to admit mental illness or people with mental issues. Because the black community has a lot of mental issues. The black community has a lot of unprocessed trauma and a lot of unprocessed hurts. Not just because of slavery and the aftermath of it, also of the escalation that happens amongst the black youth. Yes, there are a lot of deranged black young men killing other black young men who are the sons of, we are sons, our nephews, our cousins, sometimes even fathers. So there are black relatives being killed by other black people. In the United States it happens a lot, but it also happens elsewhere. We need to deal with that also. Why is it so many of those young men escalate on other black people like that? Why can't they get along? Think about it. If you're a child and your parents mishandle you, and the community around you who's black does not address them, you're going to develop anger against your own people. And this anger is going to come out in a very ugly way. And when the anger comes out, we as the black community need to admit, okay, we need to stop this chain of child abuse and this chain of denying mental illness in our community. But what happens? A lot of black folks hold on to pride. No, you have to show respect, blah, blah, blah. Okay. There was a time, there was this Dutch guy. He was in his 70s. He was all alone in a nursing home. None of his children, nor grandchildren looked him up, nor other relatives. And the guy was sobbing, being sad, saying, nobody wants to visit me, not even my children, after all I did for them. And the guy was complaining with the nurse and all of that. But then, one of the relatives of the man said, don't feel sorry for him. He's crying and sobbing right now, but hold on. When he was a young man and he had his children, he was abusing his children and treating his children like shit. He was publicly humiliating his children, mentally harming his children, even escalating physically on his children. Okay? So he gave his children a very hard time because he didn't take crap. His own validation was above everything. When his children grew up, he refused to apologize and refused to change his ways. So the children cut him off. So the children could heal from all that he did to them. And now he's old and nobody wants to visit him. Now he's playing the victim like he was such a good guy and people, the world didn't treat him well. No, he's a narcissist. Even on this old age, when you talk to him, he only talks about himself. All the time. It's all about him being the victim. Never does it speak about what he did to other people or what he could have done better. Now, amongst white folks I've noticed, if a parent or an aunt or any older individual acts out of line, the community puts the children or the teenager aside and addresses the individual saying, hey, listen, Kevin, the way you spoke to your son in public, what is that? You don't talk to people like that. Would you dare to speak like that to your boss or to any of us? No? Okay, why do it to your child? Or if white folks see that someone is escalating against their children, they may call the cops, and the cops will come and put someone in jail. That is a leverage they have amongst Europeans. That they are on code, adults do stupid against children. It doesn't have to be sexual molestation. Even if it's not sexual molestation, but just escalation against children, we're on you. We're not going to take that. But what happens in the black community? We tell children to suck it up and show validation to the ones that abuse them and to ignore how bad we're treated. And if a black individual says, I want to cut off contact with my relatives or my parents because they're toxic and they harm me, we tell them, no, you need to show respect. Cut that respect crap out. Cut it out, folks. It's time for us to face the defects amongst us. Face them and process them. Because we have way too many defects we don't want to face. It's one thing to have a Black Lives Matter protest against police brutality, killing black folks. That's a good thing, that you have those protests against that. They shouldn't be victimizing unarmed black people. They shouldn't. However, apart from the external dangers against the black community, there are also many internal dangers we need to address. And those internal dangers, we need to address them. And I address them. I do. And that's why some black folks can't handle coming to this channel while I address them. The reason I make this video, I didn't plan to make it because I already addressed this before, but the reason I make this video again, because there's this black female believer, a sister in Christ, who was almost in tears because some other black individual told her mental illness or being afflicted with PTSD, all that is just nonsense. Those just crybabies who can't handle life. Just worse things can happen. I told that sister, listen, stop discussing sensitive issues with people who lack empathy. Now, I'm not saying that the black community as a whole lacks empathy, but the empathy in the black community is damaged. Yes, when an unarmed black man is shot by a white race police officer, we get angry, we get upset, and we rise. Okay, but when a black child is being screamed at by a single mother who doesn't want to face life, or when a father leaves the children behind because he doesn't want to take responsibility as a father, or when a father escalates physically on a child, we say, well, it's respect, or we come with dumb excuses. What is that? Does black lives only matter when it's an outsider victimizing us? Or do black lives also matter when it's one of our own victimizing us? We should face our stuff. Yes, we should. Slavery is over. We can't undo the past. Jim Crow era is over. All the bad stuff happened to us. Yes, until this day, you have institutionalized racism that afflicts us black folks. We admit that. That's not our fault that the world holds on to that. But apart from what the world is doing to us, make sure we're not doing bad to ourselves. Okay? Stop the stigma on mental illness and stop this attitude of validating abusive older people. Cut it out. Well, that's it for now. Keep on agreeing with Christ and be at peace.